It was a frigid winter evening when Emma arrived at her in-laws' house, her breath clouding the air with every exhale. The frosty air nipped at her cheeks, and the faint scent of pine and wood smoke lingered, a hallmark of the family's annual Christmas gathering. As tradition dictated, Emma and her sister-in-law, Valerie, were tasked with preparing the evening's feast. Yet, as the two women worked side by side in the kitchen, Emma's unease simmered just beneath her carefully composed exterior, a feeling that had plagued her since the unsettling events of the previous week. While shopping for groceries at a bustling market, Emma had stumbled upon an unwelcome sight. Valerie, her perfectly polished sister-in-law, walking arm in arm with Patrick, Emma's husband. The pair laughed softly, their heads bent close together, sharing what could only be described as an intimate moment. Stunned, Emma ducked behind a display of holiday wreaths, her heart pounding. She strained to hear their conversation, her curiosity mingling with dread. "Imagine Emma finding out about us," Valerie said, her tone dripping with mockery and a hint of thrill. "She's so naive," Patrick replied with a chuckle. "She wouldn't have a clue. Besides, keeping the secret is half the fun." Their laughter was like shards of glass to Emma's ears, echoing long after the pair disappeared into the crowd. Her hands trembled as she clutched her shopping bag, her mind racing with questions. How long had this betrayal been unfolding? How could they laugh so freely, knowing the devastation their actions would cause? Now, back at the in-laws' house, Emma moved through the motions of meal preparation, her hands busy but her mind consumed by turmoil. Valerie chattered cheerfully beside her, blissfully unaware of the tempest brewing within Emma. When Patrick finally arrived, his exaggerated exclamations of delight filled the room as he surveyed the dishes. But the facade slipped. As he tasted one of the dishes, his expression soured. Without hesitation, he grabbed the plate and tossed its contents into the trash. "Don't serve this to our family," he barked. "It's embarrassing." Emma's heart pounded in her chest, but she refused to let him see her falter. Instead, she met his gaze with a calm she didn't feel. "I didn't make that," she said coolly. "It's Valerie's dish." Patrick froze mid-motion, his face reddening. He muttered something incoherent before stomping out of the room. The tension hung heavy, but Emma felt a small flicker of triumph. She couldn't let this humiliation or their deception continue unchallenged. She needed a plan, a way to expose their lies without sacrificing her own dignity. As the evening unfolded, Emma's mind wandered back to the early days of her marriage to Patrick. He had been charming, attentive, and full of grand promises. But after their wedding, the charm had faded, replaced by criticism and control. He had insisted she quit her job, claiming he earned enough for both of them. Yet, the supportive partnership he had promised was little more than an illusion. Their son, Liam, now grown and working out of state, was the sole bright spot in Emma's life. When Liam visited, Patrick played the role of a doting father and loving husband flawlessly, masking the cracks in their marriage. Behind closed doors, however, he was domineering and dismissive, his true nature carefully hidden from the world. As the Christmas gathering began in earnest, the house filled with the lively hum of laughter and conversation. Emma greeted relatives with a practiced smile, all the while formulating her next move. Valerie flitted around the kitchen, her designer outfit and perfectly styled hair radiating confidence. Emma's eyes lingered on her, the knowledge of Valerie's betrayal only sharpening her resolve. During dinner, Patrick stood and raised a glass, his voice ringing with false sincerity. "To family and the joy of the season," he declared, a smug smile tugging at his lips. Emma's hands tightened around her napkin. It was time. "Before we continue," Emma began, her voice steady but carrying a firm edge, "I'd like to share something with everyone." The room quieted instantly, all eyes turning toward her. Emma reached for her phone, her fingers steady as she unlocked the screen. "I've been feeling uneasy lately," she continued, her voice unwavering, "and I think it's important to clear the air." The next moments would change everything. The air in the room grew tense as Emma pressed play on the recording she had taken at the shopping mall. Patrick's voice filled the silence, his laughter tinged with cruelty. "Emma?" Clueless as ever, he mocked. Valerie's voice followed, dripping with condescension. "Imagine Emma finding out about us," she said, her tone scornful. "She's so naive." Gasps rippled around the dinner table. Patrick's mother clasped a hand over her mouth, her face pale with shock. Valerie froze, the color draining from her cheeks. Patrick shot out of his chair, his expression a tangled mess of anger and panic. "This isn't what it sounds like," he stammered, his voice rising. "Emma, you've misunderstood." Emma met his gaze, her eyes steady and cold. "Have I? Then explain why you were at a hotel with Valerie, using my credit card to shower her with gifts." She held up her phone, revealing receipts for extravagant jewelry and designer handbags. Valerie's eyes darted around the room, desperate for an escape. "Patrick pressured me," she blurted, her voice cracking. "I didn't want to, but he insisted." Patrick's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Don't put this on me," he snarled. "You were the one always coming up with excuses to meet." Their argument spiraled into chaos, their accusations colliding in the air while the family sat in stunned silence. Emma, however, remained composed, her earlier fury replaced by a quiet, resolute strength. She had exposed the betrayal, and there was no undoing it. Patrick's father finally broke the tumult, his voice stern and commanding. "Enough! Both of you have disgraced this family." Valerie burst into tears and fled the room, her sobs echoing down the hall. Patrick's once confident demeanor crumbled as he looked around the room, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his disgrace. "Emma, please," he said, his voice thick with desperation. "We can work this out." Emma shook her head, her voice firm. "I've already filed for divorce." The announcement landed like a thunderclap. Patrick's parents, mortified by their son's behavior, turned to Emma, their apology sincere. Emma's heart ached, but she felt a strength she hadn't known in years. For the first time, she was in control of her life. In the days that followed, Emma moved into a cozy apartment filled with light and warmth. She threw herself into her work, finding fulfillment and rediscovering a sense of purpose. Liam, her closest confidant, visited often, his unwavering support a source of comfort. Patrick's world, meanwhile, began to collapse. Without Emma to shield him, he struggled financially and socially. News of his affair with Valerie spread to their social circles, isolating him further. His career faltered, and he eventually resigned, his once proud image reduced to a shadow of its former self. Valerie faced her own reckoning. Her husband, devastated by the betrayal, filed for divorce and cut her off financially. Forced to move back in with her parents, she endured their anger and disapproval as they imposed strict conditions for their support. Emma, in stark contrast, thrived. She enrolled in a course to further her education and returned to painting, a passion she had long abandoned. Each brushstroke was a step toward healing, a declaration of her independence. Liam often joined her in her cheerful apartment, bringing laughter and stories of his own adventures. With his encouragement, Emma found herself embracing a life she had once thought out of reach. Over the months, Emma's confidence blossomed. She laughed freely, smiled often, and welcomed new opportunities with open arms. Friends and colleagues marveled at her transformation, noting the vibrant, resilient woman she had become. By the next Christmas, Emma hosted a small gathering in her apartment. The cozy space was filled with warmth and laughter, a stark contrast to the tense, joyless celebrations of her past. As she watched Liam chat with her friends, a profound sense of peace washed over her. She had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the future on her own terms. For the first time in years, Emma truly felt at home in her own life.